Hello, everyone. My name is always Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Today is a solo episode. I'll be discussing training. You might be asking the question, my company doesn't train me. What should I be doing? What can I do? Those of you who completed your training contracts at the big four or medium sized audit firms or even small audit firms, you used to receiving training from your employer at every level. Some of you were at companies that had an internal training department that focused on training staff. It didn't matter whether you were junior or senior, there was training for every level. And after you left these organizations, you may have joined companies that provide no training. And at this point, you might be asking, what do I do now? In the back of your mind, you might still be expecting your new company to take care of your training needs. Always keep in mind that large companies have training budgets. Smaller companies might not have included training in their budgets. Some don't even have a budget at all. Forget a training budget. They're just trying to survive. The entrepreneur might have a rough budget in their heads, but they don't actually have a budget on paper. Forget even a training budget. So when I first joined smaller organizations, and I've joined quite a few, the, the whole point was, okay, what do I do now? I was confused because the junior staff didn't even get basic Excel or Office training at some of the organizations that I joined. Now, I'm not here to tell you this is the training that you must do. The aim of the session is to help you to consider all the options based on your needs and goals. So use them as guidelines to apply to your situation. I'm sharing my experience in the hopes that it helps you to make a more informed decision because there was no one to guide me when I was making that decision. So for context, I completed my articles in audit at KPMG in Cape Town. So that gives you an idea that I went through the same Big Four training audit, and a lot of you also went through it. I mean, even if you're training outside of audit, you also get quite a lot of training, quite good training. But let's start with the elephant in the room. It's not the company's responsibility to train you. It's not their responsibility. Yes, in articles they do the training, and in the Big Four and in big companies they do the training because it helps them charge clients more if their staff are more skilled. They are also, those type of organizations are also training organizations. So the training is embedded in the organization. It's part of the character, it's part of the values of the organization. Whereas smaller organizations, they don't see it as their responsibility and they shouldn't necessarily have to. So other companies, and especially small and medium-sized businesses, might not have the funds to pay for your training. The majority of the time, those companies are merely trying to survive or just to grow. They need to focus on growth or survival alone, or the company might not exist in a year or two. So in their minds, they don't have time to focus on training budgets or am I upskilling my team. So it's difficult sometimes to find a balance. Now, even if you work for a big four audit firm or a large corporate or a listed company that has a train, and they say this big company has a training department that gives you regular training, don't limit yourself to the topics that are available at your organization. For example, if you are interested in data analytics and there's no training for that at your firm, find the training somewhere else. Take the initiative and upskill yourself. Don't expect your firm to teach you everything you need to know or everything you want to know. The moral of the story is that only you are responsible for your growth. If you don't learn and grow, the only person who suffers, and the one who suffers the most at least, is you. So you have to take the responsibility for your growth. There is no one else to blame. You have to take that responsibility. Now, after that, here's the fun part. So, again, if you were working for that big organization in the past, you were forced to take training that your company provided. If you weren't interested in that training, tough luck. You still needed to do the training. Now that you are in a new organization, you have the power to decide. So another message that I want to part with you is don't limit your development and your potential to what your manager sees for you. So when I first started working, I used to think my manager knows best. They don't, and it's not for any nefarious reasons. It's just that they don't care as much about your growth as you do. It's nothing against them. They have their own problems to deal with, and they have their own growth on their minds as well, on top of deadlines and everything else, and getting things over the line and things like that. I will be responding to questions towards the end, so please add your questions to the comment section now so that I don't miss them. Something that you need to be aware of is there's so much free training available online on YouTube and podcasts and elsewhere. Google also offers free courses in coding, AI, digital marketing, and so much more. There's also things like Khan Academy. So have a look at that. And these are just some of the things. There's lots of free training and good value training. So you might ask, okay, where do I start? First, try to figure out what you are interested in. And the only way to do that is to do your research. You can't say, I don't like coding if you've never tried it. You can't say, I don't like content creation if you've never tried it. You can't say, I don't like investing if you've never tried it. This is where those free online training courses help. There's also very cheap training that you could get from like Coursera and other. There's lots of other training websites. You don't need to enroll for a degree immediately. If you want to find out more about the topic, instead of enrolling for an expensive degree, an online course is a cheaper way to find out whether you're actually interested in the minutiae of the topic. Because you might just be interested in the general idea, but as soon as you start digging in a little bit deeper, you realize I'm actually not that interested, or it's not exactly what I thought it would be. So before you invest in a large amount of money into a degree or a diploma or postgraduate diploma, do your research first, get a better understanding. If you are in a position where your company doesn't train you, the great thing is that the training doesn't have to be in line with your job. That would be great if it is, but it doesn't have to be. Now is the time to find something you are passionate about, something that you enjoy, and something that can perhaps make you money in the long run. For example, if you can find training that is complementary to your role, it will make you more marketable. As an example, if you are, let's say, an accountant and you learn how to code, you will stand out from every other accountant out there because there's not that many accountants who know how to code. So immediately you stand out from the rest. Immediately you have something on your CV that's different to everybody else. Learning skills is also a great way to set yourself apart from others. For example, learning how to sell is a key skill. If you ever want to start a business in the future, if you don't know how to sell, your business won't go anywhere. So even if you're learning to sell for somebody else, learning to sell is a skill that's worth learning. The world is your oyster. Now, if your company doesn't necessarily provide training, but you can perhaps still justify it. So, for example, if you can prove to your manager that the training will make you better at your job, she might be willing to get the company to pay for it, even though the training is not necessarily embedded in the company. If you just, and you don't know until you ask. So if you make a good proposal, you never know what you're going to get. So this is where your motivation skills come in. You need to be able to communicate the value of that training to the company, how you'll be able to add more value in future. For example, this training will make me faster at doing X, which will allow me to do more work in the future, or something to that effect. Looking for cheaper alternatives to the course might also help your case even more. So don't just take the first course that you see online. Do a little bit of Googling. It's not that hard. And also, don't expect your manager to look for the training alternatives for you. You need to sell the training to them as a way to save them time in the short run and in the long run, because they've got a laundry list of things to get done. So don't come across like you're adding more things to their laundry list. You have to motivate it in a way that will save them time. Also, keep in mind that there's also lots of free events that you can attend that will help you learn. As an example, the auditors of your company, normally they host events around the national budget speech where they invite clients. If you want to keep up to date with the budget speech, that's a good place to start for free events. And if your auditor hasn't automatically invited you, reach out to them and ask them if they are having any events. And yes, say you've made this motivation to your company, and they've still said no. They don't want to cover the cost of the training because perhaps they don't see the value. That doesn't mean it's the end. If you can, pay for it yourself, especially if it's a cheap course. So you might ask, okay, where did you learn all of this, or why are you telling me this? So I've done quite a few of those free Google courses. I've done free trainings on LinkedIn. I've done those cheaper courses on the SA Accounting Academy, on a couple of these training websites where the cheaper courses are like anywhere between 200 Rand and 400 Rand. So on topics that interest me. So for example, last year I wanted to learn more about trusts because I don't know much about trusts. And it was a course for 300 Rand and I just paid for it myself because I wanted to learn it. It was going to upskill me. It didn't necessarily have a direct impact or wouldn't have had a direct impact on my work, but I was interested in it. So I decided to pay for it myself. I don't see any questions, so I'm hoping I've answered all your questions that you had. In closing, I want to leave you with one message. This is your life. This is your career. You are responsible for it. No matter how great your firm is or how bad they are, if you want to succeed, it's on you. You can blame as many people as you want to for you not succeeding, but the only person it will negatively affect is you. So take charge of your growth and take charge of your career. Remember, the final decision is yours. Even if you make the wrong decision, you can get training somewhere else. I think that's a good way to wrap up. The show has been live on YouTube and should be available on podcast by tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you feel that it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell. And also share it with someone who you think might get value from it. Thanks very much for joining me for another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat. Goodbye.